Behind the scenes of America's longest-running Western, there were rewrites that startled the actors, scenes that were forbidden, and moments so emotional that CBS insisted the public never see them. The world of Gunsmoke was much more chaotic than the serene streets of Dodge City you saw on television, with everything from covert conflicts amongst celebrities to film that was permanently hidden. Come along with us as we reveal the Gunsmoke sequences that were off-limits to discussion. No one anticipated the Hollywood frontier. Not only was Gunsmoke America's longest-running Western, it had its own frontier behind the scenes, full with mysteries that the public was never seen. Viewers watched Marshal Matt Dillon as he maintained Dodge City on TV. The actors and crew had to deal with conflicts, covert connections, unanticipated mishaps, and stringent network regulations that dictated what could and could not be revealed off-camera. Many moments vanished before they could be seen on air because CBS worked hard to preserve the show's reputation. Scenes with excessive brutality were cut. A joke was buried if it appeared too hazardous. Before production, even the writer's favorite plot points were blocked. For families watching at home, CBS wanted Gunsmoke to feel tough but also acceptable. As a result, whole storylines were revised or discarded. Because the network feared that turbulence behind the scenes could cause viewers to lose faith in the show, cast tensions were also kept under wraps. A culture of concealment was the end effect. Everyone on the set was aware that the events that took place while filming did not necessarily correspond with what was shown on television. Before it had started, the series nearly fell apart. The actor who would play Matt Dillon, James Arnes, wasn't sure if he wanted to play the part. He was concerned that he might spend years stuck in one role. He was pushed hard by CBS, and when he hesitated, the network threatened to recast right away. Only after intense persuasion from the producers did Aries ultimately acquiesce. Additional issues were introduced during early screen tests. Gunfights in certain instances were much more explicit than what was permitted on TV at the time. They were immediately rejected by CBS censors. Dillon shot a man in cold blood in one scene from the never-aired pilot. The network ordered its removal, claiming it was too violent for American homes. Before viewers even met the marshal, these early errors nearly destroyed the show. There will soon be more unexpected tales from the Gunsmoke set. Cast disputes and rivalries. Tensions between Dennis Weaver, who portrayed Chester, and James Aries, who played Matt Dillon, gradually increased over Gunsmoke seasons 2 through 6. The two got along well at first. However, Weaver believed his role was being marginalized as the show gained popularity. As the main character, Aries frequently got the most attention and the best scenes. Members of the crew became aware of the shift, and little arguments developed into a subdued competition. On set, it was referred to as the Dodge City Cold War because it influenced the atmosphere for years, even though it was never a public issue. When Dillon and Chester got into a fight, the rivalry peaked. It was meant to be safe and under control. Both actors, nevertheless, gave the scene more effort than they had intended. Weaver was hurt when the movements got rough. Production was immediately halted. To prevent viewers from witnessing how realistic the battle had gotten, CBS ordered the scene to be reshot in a more subdued manner and erased the original tape. The already tense relationship between the two performers was exacerbated by the incident, and the show made an effort to prevent the rumor from circulating outside of the set. The actress who portrayed Miss Kitty, Amanda Blake, likewise struggled behind the scenes. She once had a wardrobe malfunction on camera during a packed saloon scene. Although the error was made quickly, it was well caught. In a quick response, CBS insisted that all of the video be incinerated. Even in storage, they thought it was too dangerous to preserve. Blake's dress ripped during a barfight scene, which caused another problem. CBS declined to broadcast the episode despite the fact that the tear was unintentional. The scenario, according to the network, went beyond what viewers should witness. Few people ever saw the whole version of the episode, which was shelved and never shown. The actor Milbourne Stone, who portrayed Doc Adams, was typically composed and competent. However, one script had a medical treatment that he felt was both medically and morally incorrect. He declined to do the part. Stone and a producer got into a fight, and Stone left the set. Instead of replacing Stone, CBS chose to eliminate the scene entirely. Doc then disappeared from the series for 5 episodes. The studio claimed he needed recuperation and made up press releases to explain his disappearance. The true explanation was only known by the crew and actors. Next up are more untold tales from the Gunsmoke universe. The prohibited romance. At one point, Gunsmoke was on the verge of ending one of its most well-known partnerships. The long-suspended affections between Matt Dillon and Miss Kitty were eventually explored by the writers in a rare script. Viewers questioned whether the two had a deeper affection for one another for years. They were able to reveal it for the first time thanks to the script. In a silent saloon scene, James Aries and Amanda Blake even captured a tender kiss on camera. It was straightforward, considerate, and intended to demonstrate how these individuals had become close after all of their years spent together in Dodge City. However, CBS responded right away. Dillon was subject to a stringent rule from the network. He must always be perceived as a powerful, self-reliant police officer who is unsuited for romantic relationships. Dillon must never be seen in a romantic relationship, according to their official statement. As a result, the entire plot was prohibited. Editors were instructed to cut the kiss out of the show. After that, the scene was secured in a vault and placed in studio storage. According to some former workers, the video was secretly destroyed years later so that it could never be recovered. Although the truth has never been verified, many people think it has vanished forever. The cast was greatly affected by the choice. Amanda Blake was really upset. She believed that the scene finally allowed Miss Kitty to express her emotions honestly. She also thought that people were interested in this aspect of the partnership. Conversely, James Aries showed less emotion. He didn't care about the romance aspect, but he found CBS's increasing control annoying. He thought the network was restricting what the show could become, and he didn't enjoy losing creative independence. The authors also had difficulties. They made numerous attempts to revive the romance once the kiss was outlawed. Small moments, private conversations, shared gestures, or intimate situations intended to imply a closer relationship were 3 distinct tale themes. CBS thwarted each attempt. It was always the same message. Dillon needs to keep his distance. There will be more shocking revelations from the Gunsmoke cast in the future. The risky stunts that CBS concealed. During a typical stagecoach scenario, James Aries was involved in one of the most devastating accidents in Gunsmoke history. 2. Sharply did the horses pull. Aries was hurled hard to the ground when the coach overturned. Partially collapsing, the hefty structure rolled toward him. He shattered a vertebrae and broke 2 ribs. Fearing he might not make it, crew members hurried in. The entire event was caught on tape, but the video was deemed too upsetting to ever be made public. Many people think it was eventually destroyed to stop leaks, but CBS ordered it stored away right away. Additionally, the crew was instructed not to talk about the accident in public. In order to ease viewers' concerns, networks at the time sought to conceal the injuries of their stars. Although fans were informed that Aries had suffered a little setback, the reality was much more dire. Only after pushing himself through difficult recuperation sessions, which he hardly ever discussed, did he go back to work. Dennis Weaver's filming of a river scene was another terrifying experience. He slipped into deeper water because the current was greater than anticipated. The weight of his garment dragged him down. He was trapped beneath the surface for a few seconds. The team believed he was acting, so some cameras continued to record. A number of others leaped in to rescue him as soon as they realized he was in danger. The rescue was frantic and disorganized. Once more, CBS concealed the truth. A little incident occurred while filming, according to the official statement. Weaver actually got dangerously near to drowning. Few people ever saw the rescue video because it was locked away. The show stayed away from dangerous water sequences for a long period after the catastrophe. A third major mishap occurred when a trained horse and a stuntman were engaged in a duel. The horse stumbled during a quick turn and landed squarely on the stuntman. He needed to be brought to the hospital right away due to serious injuries. The duel was never shown in the program because production was halted and the script was revised. The majority of information was kept hidden due to insurance claims and legal action. To prevent more issues, cast and crew were instructed not to talk about the occurrence. Coming up next are even more behind-the-scenes secrets. Secret video was lost. An episode that viewers were never able to witness produced one of the most contentious moments in Gunsmoke history. The script's authors boldly addressed Dodge City's racial violence. It demonstrated how racism affected day-to-day existence and how the marshals had to deal with it head-on. The entire episode was filmed by the cast, and many thought it was one of the best stories the show has ever told. However, the response was swift and unfavorable when CBS screened it for sponsors. The topic, according to a number of sponsors, was too erratic and they were concerned that some audience members may become offended. Due to Gunsmoke's heavy reliance on sponsor backing, the episode was cancelled by CBS before it could run. It was put away, never aired, and the network never again brought it up over the long course of the show. Crew members discreetly stated for many years that it was one of the most significant episodes they had ever worked on. Matt Dillon was the focus of another hidden episode. The story was boldly told in the script. In a heated moment, Dillon shoots an unarmed man. The authors aimed to examine moral conflict and demonstrate that even a well-respected police officer could commit a grave error. Executives at CBS panicked when they saw the initial cut. They thought it would damage his reputation and cause viewers to lose faith in Dillon. A new version was hurriedly created by production. The original negative was buried in the studio archives, and the show was recut so that Dillon only hurt the man in self-defense. Later, others said that in order to keep the footage from being used in the future, the studio destroyed it entirely. No one outside the production was aware of how drastically different the revised episode was supposed to be when it secretly aired. Additionally, the authors initially developed a flashback plot that depicted Dillon's challenging upbringing. It exposed his struggles, losses, and errors prior to becoming a lawyer. Giving the character greater nuance was the intention, but the test audience's response to the episode was less warm than anticipated. Viewers believed Dillon's strength and leadership were undermined by his darker past. In response, CBS eliminated the entire storyline. To keep the show straightforward and secure, they substituted stock footage for all of the flashback sections. Today, very little of the original story is left. Next up are more untold tales from the Gunsmoke universe. Hidden behind the cameras. 2 cast members were found having an affair inside a trailer in one of the most talked about scandals on the Gunsmoke set. Both actors had committed relationships outside of work, and their relationship was not a part of the show. After a crew member unintentionally walked in on them, the story quickly traveled over the entire set. The story started spreading outside the studio because some staff members spoke too candidly. CBS responded quickly. The network was concerned that the controversy would tarnish the show's impeccable reputation. During their meeting with both performers, executives cautioned all parties that the matter must remain confidential. Additionally, they told the employees not to speak to the media. Scandals like this could ruin careers at the time, thus CBS didn't want to make any news. The show was also affected practically. In a future episode, the performers portrayed characters who were meant to have a tender love moment. The entire scene was taken down by producers when the incident was made public. They didn't want the intimacy on television to be mistaken for the actual circumstances occurring behind the scenes. The episode was swiftly rewritten by the authors, and the finished product had no romantic undertones. Fans referred to Amanda Blake as Miss Kitty, and she had a significant disagreement with the production crew. The script that Blake believed was unjust to her character was the first point of contention. She felt that Miss Kitty's function in the series was diminished by the plot and that she was being marginalized. The conversation got heated when she voiced her concerns. Blake resisted the producer's insistence that the script was finished. Blake left the set after the confrontation became so heated. Although CBS referred to it as a brief break, she actually moved away in exasperation. She taped a saloon scene a few days prior to the conflict, but it was promptly shelved. The moment was cut from the program because the producers were afraid it would highlight the tension that exists behind the scenes. Viewers briefly questioned why Miss Kitty had suddenly become less frequent, but the studio kept the true story under wraps. After things calmed down, Blake finally came back, but for the remainder of the season, she and a few producers had a difficult relationship. The regular cast was not the only source of trouble. A well-known and well-respected actor who was a guest star showed up on set intoxicated. Before filming, everyone thought he would get sober. However, he startled the entire cast and crew during rehearsal by pulling out his fake gun and firing it into the air. Production was halted for the day as security hurried in. Because his name would attract viewers, CBS declined to terminate him, yet, the incident compelled significant reforms. In order to cut down on his moments and give the supporting cast more lines, the writers revised the episode overnight. He barely made a brief appearance in the final cut, so audiences were unaware of how rigorous the practice had been. Next are more unexpected tales from behind the scenes of Gunsmoke. CBS, Aries denied it. Gunsmoke once came dangerously close to depicting Matt Dillon's demise. The writers came up with an experimental version of the tale in which Dillon gets shot and dies while preparing a more somber and dark episode. The plan was to test several emotional endings and investigate how Dodge City would respond. James Aries was adamantly opposed to the idea from the beginning. Even in a different conclusion, he felt it was terrible to kill Dillon because he represented stability and power. The producers chose to film the sequence in spite of Aries's protests. They thought they would utilize it for a dramatic two-part story or a special broadcast, and they wanted options. Aries was very uneasy, yet he reluctantly agreed to do the death scene. The response was instantaneous when CBS viewed the video. Executives were upset and in disbelief. They had a strong message. America's Marshal cannot be killed. One of the TV characters they trusted the most was Matt Dillon. Millions of spectators might be confused or upset if he died, even if it was just a hypothetical scenario. The scene was immediately closed down by the network. Subsequently, a number of people asserted that CBS concealed it so thoroughly that nobody could even ask for its archive usage. The public never saw a single frame of it, and it never aired. After the filming, things became even more dire. The crew began to hear rumors that CBS might use the death scene in a future special. Aries was incensed upon learning of this. He believed that a character he had spent years developing was disrespectfully portrayed in the video. In a meeting with producers, Aries stated his stance. He would quit the show right away if the network ever suggested using the death footage. This threat was serious. Gunsmoke would have been over immediately if Aries had been lost. The altercation was so intense that production almost ceased for a week as everyone attempted to defuse the situation. In the end, CBS assured Aries that the video would never be seen again. At least on the surface, filming resumed after that assurance. There will be more behind-the-scenes information revealed from the Gunsmoke set. Off-camera trouble. In his later years on Gunsmoke, Milbourne Stone, who portrayed Doc Adams, had severe health issues. Over time, his health problems worsened, making it more difficult for him to endure the lengthy filming days. He eventually had to take a long vacation from the show in order to recuperate. The purpose of the hospital scene that the writers wrote was to politely and naturally explain his absence. In the scene where Doc was receiving treatment for a serious medical condition, Stone delivered a powerful and authentic performance. Nevertheless, CBS determined that the video was too explicit for television at the time after reviewing it. The medical details, according to the network, were more graphic than what families ought to watch on evening shows. Consequently, the whole scene was removed and never aired. The original footage remained concealed in the archives while viewers were presented with a much more straightforward explanation for Doc's absence. During her final season as Miss Kitty, Amanda Blake encountered her own difficulties. She had been on the program for several years, and she was exhausted, frustrated, and very dissatisfied with the way her character was going. The situation was exacerbated by long set hours. Although neither Blake nor James Aries ever discussed it in public, there were also reports about their growing alienation from one another. Blake captured a dramatic barroom altercation during this difficult time in which Miss Kitty, who had been ignored much too frequently, finally expressed her rage. She gave a powerful, passionate, and straightforward performance. However, CBS refused to run the scene after claiming it infuriated Miss Kitty. Instead of being overtly angry, they wanted her character to maintain her composure. One of Blake's last unutilized moments on the show, the sequence was cut from the episode. James Aries had a challenging load as well. A severe World War II injury caused him to have persistent leg discomfort, making it almost hard for him to walk normally on some days. Aries unexpectedly passed out during a straightforward walking sequence during one of the filming sessions. At first, everyone believed he was pretending, but it soon became evident that the fall was genuine. As soon as Aries was well enough to proceed, CBS reshot the scene and promptly erased the original. Those on site witnessed how hard he pushed himself to keep the program going, but the effort remained hidden from the public. There will be more behind-the-scenes information from Gunsmoke soon. Scenes were concealed by CBS. Fans and even some former crew members have been discussing a Gunsmoke outtakes reel that was never made public for years. Those who worked on the set described it as a lengthy compilation of behind-the-scenes footage that caught the actors making mistakes, having mishaps, and laughing out loud. The story of James Aries becoming impatient with props that kept breaking during dramatic situations is among the most widely circulated. He was normally composed, but when a rifle jammed or a door wouldn't open, he might be heard cursing. Several of these moments were supposedly captured in the outtakes. Amanda Blake was reportedly seen slipping during a dancing routine in another segment of the movie. Her shoe caught the edge of the long dress she was wearing as she turned. She soon got back up after laughing off her fall. For the remainder of the day, the actors and crew made fun of her for it. Everyone also recalled an incident in which a horse decided to discharge itself at the worst possible moment. It occurred during a dramatic close-up, and the whole take was wrecked by the sudden noise. The team started laughing, but the sequence needed to start over. There have long been claims that CBS destroyed the entire outtakes reel. At a time when TV performers were supposed to look flawless, executives were concerned that if the tape ever leaked, it would damage the show's reputation. Its mystique is increased by the fact that nothing from the actual has ever come to light. The laughing shootout is another well-known behind-the-scenes tale. It took place while a highly serious episode with a major confrontation was being filmed. Every time the cameras rolled, the actors couldn't stop laughing for some reason. One actor would grin, another would burst out laughing, and before long, the entire scene would collapse. The tension in the moment kept melting into laughter no matter how many times they tried. Editors had to include brief segments of useful footage without any smiles in the final version that was shown. To preserve the solemn tone of the play, the entire uncut moment with all the laughs was locked away. There are still more unexpected behind-the-scenes tales to come. The government disconnects. A plotline concerning dishonest federal agents meddling in Dodge City was one of the most contentious events in Gunsmoke's history. The Marshal's discovery that certain federal officials were misusing their position of authority, accepting bribes, and harassing local residents was at the heart of the story. Dylan faces a difficult moral dilemma as a result of the author's intention to examine themes of justice and accountability. The entire episode was shot without any problems by the cast, and the network staff's initial screenings went well. When the FBI became engaged, that changed. Strong concerns to the episode were voiced by federal officials who immediately contacted CBS. They said that publishing the tale could lead to legal problems as well as public mistrust of actual federal officials. They sent a clear message to the network. This cannot be aired. The program was promptly removed from the schedule by CBS, who chose to quietly push it. This episode was never brought up again, in contrast to other cuts or modifications that were made public. The video was kept in the studio archives, and the actors and personnel were instructed not to talk about it. Although there is no official confirmation, there are rumors that the master tapes may have been completely destroyed to stop leaks. There was another scene that raised major concerns, but for a different reason. A toddler on TV picks up a gun during a difficult moment in an episode that aims to explore moral responsibility. It was filmed according to the screenplay with the intention of teaching a lesson about accountability and demonstrating how easily a dangerous situation could go out of control. However, CBS panicked after real-life national tragedies involving gun violence made news. Executives were concerned that it might be interpreted as disrespectful or perhaps hazardous to portray a child carrying a pistol. they gave the order to clear the scene right away. Instead, a last-minute reshoot with a clear moral lesson was filmed by the crew. The youngster gains knowledge about the dangers of firearms and the need for adult supervision at all times. Instead, the updated scene was shown, preserving the plot but averting criticism from the general public. Both episodes demonstrate how societal sensitivities and external forces could subtly influence what viewers viewed in the end. Gunsmoke has even more behind-the-scenes stories that seldom ever made it onto the screen. The finale was redacted. The arrival of a script calling for the death of a cherished character was one of the most dramatic behind-the-scenes events of Gunsmoke. The cast was taken aback by the concept. Milbourne Stone, Amanda Blake, and James Aries were incensed. They believed that eliminating the character would betray viewers and destroy the tone of the show. They essentially went on strike by refusing to have their scenes filmed. Executives at CBS were concerned. The season might have been delayed and the entire episode could have been ruined if the main cast had left in the middle of filming. The network and writers spent the entire night rewriting the screenplay. In order to preserve drama and tension without going overboard and upsetting the players, new storylines were introduced and the character was kept alive. The episode was saved by the modification, although set tensions persisted for days. One sequence was filmed before the actors could step in, despite the rewrite. It depicted the discovery of a body in the Long Branch saloon. It was a very graphic scenario with realistic makeup and accessories in a dark setting. After watching the video, executives concluded it could not be shown. They thought it was much too grim and brutal for Gunsmoke, which had always struck a balance between drama and morality. Officially, the scene was deemed unbroadcastable. The film reels were stored in the CBS vault, and it never came on television. Knowing that it was still a delicate topic, the cast and crew shunned discussing it for years. The cast, writers, and executives came to an unwritten agreement following the incident. Nobody would talk about the near mutiny that had taken place or bring up the scene in public. Only a few infrequent interviews with previous cast members made reference to it decades later, making it a secret tale. The removed content remained hidden away, serving only as a reminder of the lengths the cast would go to in order to preserve the show's reputation, while the actual episode aired in a safer, sanitized version. That concludes the story of Gunsmoke's secret tales, near disasters, and hidden chaos. The play was more wilder off camera than anyone could have imagined, with everything from cast rebellions to band scenes, from secret affairs to risky exploits. To ensure you don't miss the next episode of Untold Hollywood Stories, please hit the like button, subscribe for more in-depth content, and set the notification bell.